Welcome, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Pride Talks on the ASPEC podcast. Today we're chatting with Java4Jaq, who I'm really excited to be speaking with. Welcome on in, Warrior for Life 9761. So, as you know, ASPEC podcast is a podcast exploring the lived experiences of asexuality and aromanticism through an intersectional lens. Really interested in talking about just how diverse asexuality and aromanticism and the lived experiences under those umbrellas truly are. And myself, Taiye, non-binary AroAce spec, PhD student by day, and in the evening I like to do ace and aro advocacy. That's a little bit about me. Why don't we pass it over to Java to introduce themselves?
Well, hello. This is my first time ever being in like an interview space or like a podcast space even, so this is super exciting, first of all. But I'm Java. I'm an artist. I stream on Twitch maybe once a week, maybe usually on Fridays. Um, I'm AroAce, aromantic and asexual, and non-binary. This was super exciting. I'm super excited to be here. Like, we were in Corty's Discord, and you were like, "I'm searching for aromantic people to interview," and I was like, "I'm aromantic."
Hell yeah. We haven't had too many folks yet appear during the Pride Talks to chat about, the lived experiences of aromanticism and what Aro Pride looks like. So I'm really excited to get some
Right.
Aro representation as well on the podcast. And welcome on in, GK Fire Dev. Perfect timing on that podcast class. GK Fire Dev is currently taking a podcasting class, which is super cool, I think.
Oh, sweet. That's neat.
Yeah, I need to take a class like that and learn how to make this even more professional than its current
I wonder
form
what you
is.
learned. You probably learned like a lot of details in there.
Yeah, this is just me freestyling half the time.
And it's perfect.
Oh, thank you. So I usually start with kind of a brief question about coming out and discovering a spec identity, and just how it can sometimes be difficult to have the vocabulary or to necessarily realize what that experience looks like, especially without some sort of context. I know for me, I didn't really come to understand what aromanticism was, and even my own ace identity until I was about 30. And that's much later than you'd expect. But I've come to talk to so many people. They were like, "Yeah, I came out in my late 20s, early 30s. Before that, I didn't have the language or really have a way to explain my experience." What was it like for you?
Yeah. Well, I did experience my asexuality like a lot earlier, like probably in high school, maybe even middle school, honestly. But I didn't have the words for it. But once I in high school, when those words became available to me, it just like immediately slotted into place. Like in middle school, I already felt like I wasn't experiencing something that the other kids were. That's when those feelings start to bud for other people, and it wasn't doing that for me. So I already noticed that there was a difference. And then in high school, I got a word for it, and it just kinda, like, immediately slotted into place. It was very, it was like a revelation, revealing, maybe. It was
Absolutely.
and then my aromanticism, that one did come at a later time. I think I only, like, recently came to terms with it, like, in my early 20s. Um, and it was I got that same feeling of like I wasn't experiencing something that other people were. I didn't understand how they were getting into relationships, how they express their feelings like that, and I just like I wasn't getting something. And I recently, when I came into this community on Twitch, I found a Twitch streamer, Niueva, who is also AroAce, and they talked about aromanticism, and it gave me more understanding of what it is, and I was able to uh, bring that into myself. I was able to accept that for myself, and it was very that was very nice. That's
Absolutely.
yeah, that's how I came into asexuality. Asexuality was fairly easy compared to the
Hmm.
aromanticism, but they were both like very gratifying to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming to, figuring out the language to describe your experience, to meet others that have had, share some aspects of your lived experience and find that community was just so freeing and so amazing for me. And
Right?
coming to that realization, hey, I don't have to constantly try to meet whatever society tells me I should be doing with regards
Mhm.
to finding a partner, trying to make my way up that relationship escalator, because it ain't going to happen for me. And coming
Yeah,
to that realization was so, so incredibly freeing and really had a positive impact on my own mental health. So totally can
right.
relate.
I remember in high school, like no, even middle school, about like I was labeled a heartbreaker because I wasn't returning these feelings to other people. But it was like that's just how I am.
Hmm.
That's just how I be.
Yeah, it can be really difficult to have people tell you that, and
Yeah.
there's so many societal there's so many misunderstandings around aromanticism that all arrow folks are cold, don't want to be friends, don't want to be social. Just the most bizarre um, things that people say about arrow folks,
Right.
unfortunately.
I hate those. And also like people who see it as a challenge as well.
Yeah,
Like they see it as something to like
you got
fix
to
or
save them.
right.
You got to save them
Yeah.
from the asexuality, from the aromanticism. That's also horribly disgusting.
It is, and it's so dangerous. It's
Yeah.
like and it ties in with that narrative that like that they're just a late bloomer, that you just have to do it to understand it. You just have to date somebody to understand relationships. And it's so dangerous to get into that mindset. It's disgusting.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And I hated like being told I was just a late bloomer, just haven't met the right person. Oh
Hmm.
my gosh.
I was told that so, so many times. I've been
Right?
told at Pride, even, that how can you know that you're aromantic? What if the right person comes along to you? And I'm like, we're fucking
Exactly.
at Pride. What are you
You're
talking
supposed to
about?
accept me. Oh,
Yeah, that's
it's
what I said. I was like,
wild.
what are you doing?
It's wild. Yeah, there's a lot of invisibility that goes into it. It's just like
Hmm.
it's with the it's the same thing with like bi erasure. It's like it doesn't exist to it doesn't exist to the far ends of the spectrum. That and pan erasure as well.
It's
It's
it's so problematic.
like
Just
if it's
because
not me,
somebody
it doesn't exist.
Exactly. Just because somebody appears to be in what society reads based on societal assumptions as something that could pass as a relationship that looks like it's straight passing, just because that person doesn't happen to be in a relationship at any given point, doesn't
Right.
mean that they're not valid. It doesn't mean that they're not bi. Doesn't mean they're not pan. Obviously, it doesn't mean they're not,
Mhm.
aro, not ace. It's so
Yeah,
fucked
yeah,
up.
yeah. It really is. I wish people would just be, like, a little bit more open-minded.
And on that note of, erasure, Julius Andrew Decker, who actually very excitingly commented on the announcement for this podcast that this looks really neat.
Oh, I
The
saw
was
that.
the author of a book called The Invisible Orientation in 2014 and coined that term for asexuality. Talks about why asexuality, and I would also extend this to many aspects of aromanticism. Uh, just is so incredibly invisible, so incredibly hard to navigate because of so many things. Because of the
It
fact that
is.
how do you how do you I like to start by saying, how do you find an ace in the wild? How do you find an arrow in the wild? There's
Right?
nothing necessarily that you
Stan
can read
Yeah,
into based on societal assumptions that would tell you, oh, they're ace, oh, they're arrow.
yeah.
Um,
No deciding factors.
exactly. And obviously, on that topic of erasure, the fact that society, if at all, only understands ace and arrow identities in a very narrow, static way.
Mhm.
The arrow ace that doesn't want to talk to anybody, that's,
Oh,
too
yeah, those
busy doing
stereotypes.
homework and
Mhm.
doesn't want to be social with anyone, or the ace person that is sex repulsed, sex negative, never had sex, and you know meets all the gold
Right.
star standards that media says an ace person has to. And if you don't meet all those very narrowly defined criteria that are portrayed in the limited experiences that we see, how do you know that you're ace? How do you know that you're arrow? It's difficult, especially if you're not in a Western, you're not of Caucasian descent, you're not living in North America or England, where the most identifiable um, representations tend to come from. It
That
can be
is
really
true.
hard. It can be really hard to
Yeah.
see yourself in amongst those experiences.
Mhm.
And I'm so incredibly blessed, and I've talked about it many times, that I've come to find community in person, both locally and in several places around the Toronto region, a little further away, a little further out, and then back home and where I'm from originally as well. But that's not the case for
Oh, that's
everyone.
so neat. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I didn't grow up around any kind of community. Like, I grew up in Arkansas, in the South United States, and there was, like, no representation, or there was no figure, elder above me that I could look up to in a LGBT community, and all I had were, like, quizzes online.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I did. This is like that's how I found out the asexuality word. That's how I found out different sexualities. It was wild.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
those can be
that's why I'm
helpful.
glad.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm glad that the world is coming into like a this era of global information.
Mm-hmm.
I'm it's very freeing, and it does give some kind of uh resource. There's something to turn to. It's a little bit better than it was before.
Absolutely. And I definitely know that for myself and a lot of people that I've talked to, online spaces were the first spaces that they came across, aces and arrows and, discussions around asexuality and aromanticism. And those were the first communities that I joined, got to, better understand myself. And then I came across the in-person ones afterwards. So I think
So neat.
for me and for many people, these online spaces are the spaces where we come to find others in the ace and arrow community.
Yeah.
Because as I've said many, many times, it's hard to find an ace. It's hard to find an arrow in the wild out there in the real world.
It really is. I'm so grateful for this like community here on Twitch. They it's like helped me so much like understand myself, but like also have people that get you, like have an actual sense of community. Ah,
Absolutely.
whenever I think about it, my heart sings. Oh my gosh, I love them.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful for the Fruity Stream team that I'm a part
Mhm.
of. Just how many folks on the Fruities are A-Spec, are Aerospec, and how I've got this wonderful set of community I found through the Ace and Arrow raid train last summer, and many
Right.
folks also in the Spoon platoon as well happen to be Ace or Aerospec. And so through that, through my online communities elsewhere, and then through the some of the IRL communities I've developed kind of this wonderful set of resources, wonderful set of, communities I can rely on, to help me get through, these really difficult times, but also help me better understand and learn more about the community in general. And it was through the work that I've done locally here with the Ace and Arrow support group and, other discussions I've had online that I've kind of accumulated this, set of resources that I'm able to draw upon to chat with folks on the podcast.
Yeah. It's so nice coming together. It really is.
Absolutely. So I think, we both chatted about how important, the online communities have been for our journeys.
They
And
really are. I don't know where I would be right now if like if I hadn't come across this community. I don't know how I would identify.
yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
know if I would have had the same vocabulary as I do now.
I certainly wouldn't have if it weren't for, the Aces and STEM Discord that I joined. And,
Mhm.
from there,
Okay.
meeting uh, the online, at the time it was an online uh, call through Zoom for local folks here under the Ace and Arrow spectrums. Um,
Mm.
and it started kind of as its own independent discussion and support group. And then the organization that I'm now a part of kind of absorbed that independent Ace and Arrow group, and it's now part of the organization. But
Oh,
there are
that's neat.
very few, you know, 2SLGQI plus organizations that have a dedicated support group for Ace and Arrow folks in their umbrella of activities.
Oh,
It's one of
that's
the only ones
sweet.
I know of.
Yeah.
Often it's the small independent folks like you and I that start these groups, and they don't necessarily get a lot of publicity because they're small and
Yeah.
difficult. As we said, there's a lot of they can be very hidden for a whole host of reasons. So having
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
organization behind it and allowing us, the resources that comes with being part of a larger organization. Not that the organization I work with is particularly large, but at least it's got the ability to advertised more than, say, a small independent Zoom call or something, right?
Yeah. That's really neat. It's pretty awesome. I love that thing.
And so, we've talked about, a little bit already, but, asexuality and aromanticism are often greatly misunderstood. What are some of the most frustrating misconceptions that you've come across, that you've experienced, had to put up with?
I think for myself, I'm a pretty like in IRL, I'm a little bit of a hermit, so I haven't experienced a lot like out in the world. But hearing about them, like I think hearing about the misconception that we're devoid of emotion, that we don't like any kind of touching, those are like really hard hitters that I don't think those are tough stereotypes to shake. But the main one that I really can't stand is what was it? That we don't experience love at all. Like we don't experience any kind of attraction. And it's like if we and but it's so it's really hard to explain because there's the misconception that aromantic people don't feel like romantic love, but they just like sex. They like sex without love. And but the with that misconception is the don't like touching. So it's weird to think about, like, how can you have these 2 misconceptions in the same space for the same sexuality? And the all the twisting definitions of it all, just, like it's very annoying. And and
Absolutely.
and and there's, like, so and there's and, like, with that, it's, like, so much misinformation for people who are just trying to find themselves as well.
Exactly.
Like, when they're trying to find definitions for themselves, they come across these misconceptions that the aromantic people only like sex without any kind of love. They don't like any kind of touching, and they'll write that off for themselves because like, "Oh, that's not me." And then, like, however many years down the line, they'll come across the right information, and it's just it's disheartening.
Exactly what Busby said. So aplatonic aromantics do exist, but it's a subset of aromanticism and
Right,
shouldn't be considered to be representing all folks under the aromantic umbrella. It is true that
right.
does, aplatonic aromantics do exist, just like allosexual aromantics do exist.
Mhm.
But that's a subset of aromanticism,
Yeah.
and it's not the only experience under the aromantic umbrella. I know for myself, I'm aromantic, but
Mhm.
I do, the, at least theoretically, do desire some aspect of, emotional closeness. Just not the
Right,
emotional closeness that, society might expect in, say, a romantic relationship, but, you know,
right.
something that goes maybe perhaps beyond what Western society deems purely platonic friendship. The idea of this queer platonic partnership, queer platonic relationship, that seems ideal for me. Where there's
Me
a greater
too.
degree
Yeah.
of emotional closeness. There's aspects of the relationship that would be not necessarily regarded as purely platonic, but that don't meet the definitions of romantic in the Western vocabulary.
Yeah, I guess that a lot of the, misconceptions that, like, they can come from zeroing in on a subset of that community and just like
Exactly.
blowing it out of proportion.
Yeah, or Busby said, saying, that this one experience is encapsulates all of aromanticism or all of
Right.
asexuality. And
Right.
the
Right.
unfortunate reality for aromantic depictions in media is the uh, aplatonic AroAce with absolutely no um, desire to be social with anyone, and it's a very problematic stereotype.
Right. And they give him the robotic,
Mm-hmm.
uh, whatever, the robotic face.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. It's fun every once in a while, but every time it gets a little repetitive.
The Jugheads of the Archie comics, where they just want to be left alone. It's like,
Hmm.
no, not at all. That, well, for some folks that might be the case. I know many, many aromantics who are very social, have wonderful, platonic or queer platonic relationships in their lives. And it's not the same kind of relationship that Western society expects of you to have up the, as you go up this, whatever the relationship escalator tells us we have to, achieve. And
Right.
that the most important relationship is the romantic and sexual one. And if you don't have a romantic and sexual relationship, then what are you doing with your life? Obviously, not very much,
Right.
according to them.
The Western obsession over romantic and sexual relationships
Hmm.
is so terrible.
It's really problematic. And it
It really is.
demonizes anyone who's single, because if you're single, you must be doing something wrong.
Yeah. Like, oh, they're not succeeding in life if they don't have
Hmm.
like a romantic partner.
Exactly. And it
Ah,
comes, and we've talked about this many times, but it comes into law as well. The only relationship that's legally recognized as a, legal partnership is the romantic and sexual one through marriage or common law partnership. But that
that
common
is,
law,
yeah.
as we were talking about on Monday, has a very strict set of requirements to meet. And it requires you to live in the same household, basically sleep in the same bed, and, basically look like all aspects of a typical marriage would look like, just without the piece of paper.
That is so weird.
Now, it varies from place to place, and I don't know the exact requirements for common law partnership. However, many of them do basically require you to live together and, basically look like a traditional romantic relationship, just without the piece of paper.
So wild. Is that that's like a government thing?
Yeah, it basically, if you meet the requirements for common law partnership, you basically get most of the same tax benefits and other legal benefits that come along with being married.
One part of me is like, that's really cool to hear about, but another part is like, that's so weird to hear about.
Hmm. But why don't we recognize other kinds of relationships? Why don't we recognize queer platonic partnerships?
Yeah. I think it's just because like it is like in the sense of the world, it is fairly new. It's just now getting coverage
Hmm.
and it's just now changing people's minds. And the world is full of traditionalists and they don't like changing their mind once they write something down.
I'm really excited. I just got a notification that it shipped from the UK today. but I
Oh.
paid an exorbitant price for a new book that just came out by Ren Burke called Love Expanded: How Asexuals and Aromantics Are Redefining Love, Life, and Family.
Oh, yeah, I saw
Because
that.
of the absolutely horrible exchange rate between the British pound and the Canadian dollar, and the 13.99 uh, British pound shipping cost to North America, I ended up, after currency conversion, paying $60 for this book. And I'm just like, why? This is horrible.
Oh, I better be a good book.
Yeah, but I'm
It's
like,
gonna be a
this
good
is
book.
this is going to be, really important to read, going
Mhm,
forward
mhm.
for the podcast as well. So I figured, you know what? I can use it as I can sort of look at it as an expense that's worth it for, furthering my understanding for the podcast. I'll type it in the chat. It's called
Yeah.
Love Expanded. That's kind of the short title. How asexuals and aromantics are redefining love, life, and family by Ren Burke.
That'll be really neat to read, honestly.
I'll see if I
I
can
really
grab
do
a
like
link.
this, yeah, I really do like this. Well, this era is gonna be one for the history books. There's gonna be a lot of stuff happening at the same time. And at one point, it's, like, really cool because you're getting all this influx of information about everything that you wanna learn about, but then with that comes so many different stories, and you're only fixating on one, and it's blowing everything out of the water. It's very nuanced time, but this will be fun to
Absolutely.
read.
Absolutely. Very excited. Says Love Expanded is not a book about suffering, though the challenges queer people face are everywhere and real. Quietly radical, it's a guide for what non traditional relationships can look like in all their myriad forms, and a source of advice from aromantic and asexual people on how to form them. It's about opening up opportunities for expanded love for everyone. It's for the
Oh,
sake of single people struggling to own a home, for those who feel that friendship is less prominent in their lives than they'd like, for people who want more social support, for lives lived happily single, like me.
mm.
It's
Mhm.
about new languages for consent, for better, clearer communication, as we talk about every single time on this podcast. Always come back to talking about what can we learn from things like relationship anarchy and what it says about what a relationship has to look like. It's about different approaches to dating that focus less on seeking instant chemistry and more on building friendships, the kind of, demi experience. It's about aspect
Right.
joy. In Love Expanded, Ren places the focus on the power and importance of platonic love and relationships. Not all love is romance, like the sign I carried a couple years ago at Pride said, and gives a new perspective to how we all relate to each other, offering hope and solace and joy to so many people who may not feel that they belong in our society's conventional frameworks for relationships, whether they're ace, whether they're arrow, or not.
Oh, that sounds good.
Like, I have to read this.
This sounds like such a good book.
So I linked it in the chat. It's published by Atlantic Books.
Oh, wow, that did just come out.
Literally just came out. Yep. Technically, it
It
comes
says
out
it comes out
tomorrow.
tomorrow,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I guess because of the international shipping, they shipped it a couple days early so that it would, arrive. By the time it arrives, makes its way through customs, I'll get it, not like 3
Yeah,
years later, hopefully.
yeah. Hopefully. Goodness.
So very much looking forward to reading that. I'll definitely let folks know what I think and what I learned from it.
I gotta get more Ace books.
I mean, there's lots. I should really create a command because we talk about them so often. But
Ooh, that would be good.
um, I've linked them in many of the podcast descriptions on YouTube. So if you go to, for those of you that, I think most of you that are here already know this, but there is a YouTube channel for the podcast. And I've definitely linked it in a number of the video descriptions.
Okay, sweet.
Let me see if I can grab a few. So, I mean, off the top of my head, Ace by Angela Chen is like a good one for kind of those that want to just sort of better understand, asexuality at kind of a more basic level and kind of learn more about the diverse range of experiences that can fall under asexuality. That's a good one. There's a couple that have been written by Astat Advice, aka Cody Diagal Orions. Let me see. I think might have mentioned them. No, that was I think talking with Glasses Journal. We listed a few. Yeah, there we are. Ace by Angela Chen. I Am Ace by Cody Diagal Orions is kind of another 101 level kind of book. The Ace and Arrow Relationship Guide by Cody Diagal Orions, also known as Astat Advice.
Oh.
Being Ace, an anthology of queer, trans, femme, and disabled stories of asexual love and connection by Madeline Dyer et al.
I love that. I love the word anthology.
And then if you want a much deeper, almost more of a academic view of what compulsory sexuality is and how it's used as a tool to basically oppress not only ace folks but marginalized communities in general. Sharonda J. Brown's Refusing Compulsory Sexuality, a Black Asexual Lens on Our Sex-Obsessed Culture is fantastic, but it's a much more, it's not a 101 level at all. It's a much deeper book that really breaks down the issues
That sounds
with
really interesting.
compulsory sexuality. So those are some ones to think about to start, and then obviously the one I just linked on Love Expanded looks like a good one as well.
Yeah, I took a screenshot of those. All of those. Okay. Sweet. Yeah. I don't have a whole lot. I mostly just like read textbooks now, but I haven't read any ACE textbooks. That'll be sweet.
That's because in a lot of the um, queer and gender studies classes, asexuality and aromanticism don't get talked a lot about,
Right.
unfortunately.
They would probably be overlooked.
Yeah. So.
There's not enough of an impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
But,
So we've kind of already talked about, why, how media representation is poor, and some counter examples that in books at least you can take a look at as much better, representations and discussions of asexuality and aromanticism. But are there any mainstream examples of asexuality or aromanticism that spoke to you at all? It could be TV, it could be a movie, whatever you'd like.
I think I mentioned him in a previous podcast, but Cash from Heartbreak High. Do you remember?
Yeah, I
He,
remember
I,
you mentioning that. Yeah, for sure. I have not seen Heartbreak High, but
right. It's such a good show. It showcases a non-binary kid, uh, an autistic kid, autistic lesbian. Um, there's Cash, who's asexual and queer, and it's just a very all around very good show. And Cash is the asexual character, and he's in a relationship with a non-binary character. And the non-binary character is allosexual, and it causes a lot of conflict between them. And they did a really good job at showcasing those conflicts that happen because those are very real
hmm
conflicts. And they do have like good discussions about it, about like how this doesn't work for Cash, how this does work for the other person. And I really like how they portrayed him. Like he wasn't a closed off person. He had genuine good romantic feelings for this non-binary person. And fuck, I forgot their name. I think their name is Darren. I think it's Darren. And Cash had very real love for Darren. And he didn't have those sexual feelings. And Darren was having a lot of conflicting feelings about, like, well, am I just not good enough? Do you not want to have sex with me because you don't like me anymore? And it brings those discussions to light, and it's portrayed in a very respectful manner as well. And I really like Cash. He's my favorite.
And I'm glad to hear that because often those more complex, nuanced issues aren't dealt with very well in media. And it's
Yeah,
always, you know, that,
not as much as real
comes
life.
out
Yeah.
as, villainizing the person who happens to be Ace or happens to be Arrow.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. As well. And then another one that's a little on the happier side is Luffy from One Piece. I love Luffy. He's so funny. And he is, I swear to God, he's canonically asexual. He doesn't react to any kind of stimulus of the sexual orientation. And I love it. He's completely unfazed with like, and One Piece women are very over sexualized, and that's a problem in
Mhm.
itself. But Luffy doesn't react to any of it. He, even when advances are made towards him, he's like, I don't know. Uh, I'm just here for the adventure. And yeah. Ah, I think you know what? He was one of my like asexual awakenings in middle school because middle school is when I started watching One Piece. And yeah, that was definitely like, yeah, he was my asexual awakening. Mm.
That's great.
Yeah, it was. I was like, I relate to that guy.
Absolutely. That's what it's about. It's about finding representation that speaks to your own experience.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. That's one good piece of representation from a young age. That's probably like it's probably good. That probably like kickstarted how I got there so early. Because asexuality was like easy for me to discover.
Mhm.
Aromanticism came out at like a later
Yeah.
uh, age.
Same for me. It was first asexuality and then, finally kind of looking back on things through a retrospective lens. I was like, yeah, I can definitely see the lack of ever, really wanting to date unless I was absolutely, forced to, um, trying to date because society told me I was supposed to be looking for someone. And,
Right.
the one, what society would deem as, close to, typical relationship one could have. I came to realize what I was looking for and what they were looking for were completely different. And I didn't really, I guess, what I thought may have been romantic feelings were really more just a emotional closeness. Because looking back at it, it was the times where we were together. Always felt less comfortable in many ways than I did when we were, you know, dating
Right.
from afar. I preferred the long distance aspect to it because it would almost feel like I could have it more on my own terms. And it was looking back at this and realizing, wait a minute.
That's very real. Yeah. I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine about like relationships, and they said that this is when I was like questioning. Like I was kind of in the denial phase of questioning, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I'm just not emotionally stable enough for a relationship." And I just, I'm just not emotionally stable enough. And I latched onto that explanation. And I was like, yeah, I'm just not emotionally stable enough for a relationship right now. That's why I don't have those feelings. And it came at a later time that I was like, that's not what it is. So, but I'm glad. Yeah, we got there eventually. We got there
Yeah,
eventually.
I just latched on to I'm too busy doing my degree. I'm too busy doing this. I'm too busy doing that. I always found
Yeah.
excuses and they just kept coming. And I was like, well,
You have to excuse, yeah.
maybe there's a pattern here I'm not quite
Mm,
understanding.
yeah, yeah. Maybe there's a pattern.
And I think I finally figured out what that pattern might be.
Hmm. I wonder what it is.
Right. But finally, putting that, having that language to explain it and
Mhm.
giving me the permission to say, hey, look, no, it's not that I haven't found the right person. It's that I don't experience that sort of attraction. I'm not looking for
Right,
that.
yeah.
And finally, being able to say that out loud put some sort of context to how I was feeling was so freeing for me. I now no
Yeah. It's
longer
it's like
have to
a
worry
relief.
about will I ever go up the relationship escalator. That answer is no, I don't want to. I don't have to. And that was so freeing for me.
Yeah. Just that like you're not putting that pressure on yourself anymore to fit into something that you're not gonna fit into.
Exactly. And realizing that what means the most to me are the relationships that I've developed through support groups, the relationships I've
Mm, yeah.
developed, the more platonic ones through the Ace and Arrow groups
Mhm.
online at Pride. That's what I like. That's what gives me the energy. Not,
Yeah.
necessarily close emotional, well, I mean, as I said, the idea of a queer platonic partnership does appeal to me, but I'm not actively seeking one out. I think in that case it would be something would have to happen organically for me. It's not
Yeah.
like I'm
Mhm.
going out there and saying, "Hey, do you want to be a QPP with me?" It's more if it
Yeah.
happens, I would not object to it kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's no that's kinda scary to think about, like, I agree that I would wanna be in a queer platonic relationship, like, that is something I would really want. But, like, it's scary because there's no script for it.
No,
There's no guide. There's no,
exactly.
like, "You need to do this, and then you need to do that."
And that's
It's
what's
it
nice
it
about it in some ways because you don't
Yeah.
have to conform to what society tells you it should look like.
Yeah, that is true. You can make up your own rules about it.
Mhm,
Yeah.
exactly. Make it work for what works for you and whoever you're
Mhm.
in the queer platonic partnership with.
Yeah. It's scary and freeing at the same time, which is good.
So yeah, we definitely talked a lot about the metanormativity here and the assumption in that everybody desires to be in a romantic coupled monogamous relationship. And we've talked about the fact that for both of us, that is absolutely not the case.
Mhm.
And, for me, many of the things that I look back to time and time again come from, you know, uh, this relationship anarchy guide.
Right.
Uh, for folks that want to learn more about, what relationship anarchy is, what queer platonic partnerships are, and how there's kind of a overlap between folks in aspec communities, polyamorous communities, and relationship anarchy. You can check out Megan Sandor's video that I've linked there. Does a great job. It's about a 40-minute video, and it really delves into, you know, what is polyamory? How does it differ? How does it similar to relationship anarchy? And what is a QPR? And how is it similar and how is it different from relationship anarchy? We do have an ad
Mhm.
coming up in just over 2 minutes from now. So I think this is a
Great.
natural point where, I'd like to maybe take a quick break and we can kind of talk a little bit more about how, allonormativity and amatonormativity have influenced your life experience. Um, you know,
Yeah.
we can talk a little
Okay.
bit about that when we come back. Does that sound good?
Sounds amazing.
All
Oh my
right.
god.
So we will be back in a few minutes and see you on the other side. Welcome back, folks. Hope you had a chance to get up and stretch and
Yeah. Got some water.
get some water like I did. We can kind of chat a little bit about how these assumptions of allonormativity and amatonormativity can really have profound problematic influences on our experiences. It certainly did for me. I was always
Mhm.
told you just haven't found the right person. I was like, well, maybe I just haven't gone to the right dating sites. Maybe I just am
Yeah.
in school for too long. But no, it's just don't want
Just not
that,
what you
and that's
want.
perfectly okay. But it certainly plays a role for many, many, many folks in the community. How have these, assumptions of amatonormativity and allonormativity impacted you and your journey?
I've had a lot of the same experiences that, like, the questioning of, "I just haven't found the right person," or something else is affecting this. It's not me. It's because of something else in my life that's causing me not to have those romantic or sexual feelings, like,
Absolutely.
and it's it's like, again, this goes back to I feel like middle school is really when I had it figured out. In middle school, like, when somebody says they have a crush on you and I don't know how to respond to it, it's that same type of uncomfortable feeling that I have when I'm just out and about living in life, because there's always like the context that I have to be in a romantic or sexual relationship, and there's that uncomfortableness that I carry with me because of that. Like, I'm not in the norm. I'm not part of society because I don't have those feelings. And it sucks that I don't feel like I'm part of anything. It's other to me, and I don't know. I feel better about platonic relationships than I do any kind of other kind of relationships.
Definitely
But
can relate on that. And, just how
mhm.
lonely and isolating it is when you're told time and time again, oh, you'll find somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, why aren't you looking? Why aren't you on, X and X dating site? Why haven't you checked Tinder lately? It's like,
Or when I remember this was like I was out to dinner with my family or something, and I saw a really cool person, and I was looking at them because they looked really cool. And then my sister goes, "Oh, you really like them, huh? You want to date them?" And then they put that pressure on you. And there's always going to be that constant, like, "Oh, you're in a relationship with them because you look like you like them," and it's so gross. It's kind of gross. Uh,
not all relationships are the capital R relationship that I like to call it. The
oh
one
yeah.
that comes with all the expectations of a romantic and sexual partnership. There are many
Mhm.
kinds of relationships. They're
Yeah.
equally as valid, all, as relationship anarchy argues, all equally as important as important. For most people, not, there is no one singular person that can ever fulfill all your needs in life.
Mhm. Yeah.
Not everybody's going to have the same lived experiences as you. There
Exactly.
there are things that I get from, my research colleagues that I'm not going to get on Twitch in terms of, you know, thinking about, obviously research or certain aspects of academia that I need to navigate. I'm not going to ask folks on Twitch about that. Just like I'm not going to ask my research colleagues about navigating, the Twitch ecosystem or
Right, yeah.
all things Ace and Arrow. For me, it's about the communities that I've built around me that are
Mhm.
the most important.
That's true. Yeah.
And so I think it's difficult for any one person to fulfill all those needs and have that understanding of all the complexities that go on in your life from day to day.
Yeah. It's weird to think about, yeah.
So yeah, I mean it definitely for some people it certainly works. It doesn't for many folks though, and it certainly doesn't for me.
That's true. Yeah, it does work for some people, but there
Absolutely. And if
needs
it
to be
does, that's
that.
perfectly okay, but it doesn't
Mhm.
for everyone, nor should it have to. And that default
Right.
assumption that there is one person to fulfill all your needs is a problematic one that we've
Yes.
talked
Yeah.
about time and time again on the podcast.
Mhm. Yeah. Like in media, they I don't know that word, but they put so much pressure on, like, their romantic relationship, and then they sideline the best friend, you know? Like, as
Yeah,
soon as you have that romantic end game, the best friend isn't it's not they're not in the picture anymore, and
absolutely. I've
it's
had that experience
terrible.
so many times as I've gotten older. You know, the folks that
Yeah,
I knew coming out of high school, early on in university, start getting into relationships. They start having families. Yeah, I get it. But I don't talk to them much at all anymore. I don't have the opportunity to hang out with them anymore.
Yeah.
And it hurts, absolutely. And I've
Yeah,
talked to
it's
many
you're no longer
folks.
a
Yeah,
priority.
exactly. I've talked to many folks who are Ace and Arrow that have had similar experiences, and they're like, why deprioritize your other friendships in your life?
Yeah, it's a very lonely
Hmm,
experience.
absolutely.
It's like not getting picked first at the
I was never picked first, ever.
Yeah, me
I
neither.
was not the popular one in the class, to say the least.
Mhm.
But I
No.
very much found, you know, university to be a much better fit for me. High school,
Yeah.
it was not a good experience for me. And coming
Yeah.
to navigate, well, I have all sorts of qualms about the way that academic institutions are run and how, we can go into, I could go on for hours about, problems with the way that courses are taught. In general, university was so many ways a much
Yeah.
better experience for me than high school ever
Mhm.
could have been.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And it's where I
Mm.
came to learn the most about myself.
Yeah, my first run at college, it was definitely a time, like capital T time. Um, the university I went to was in Arkansas, and it was a state university, and it was on campus, and I didn't have a good time there. But the college that I'm going to now is a very much a different experience, and I like that I found something that works for me instead of, like, it being, like, this default state school that everybody is supposed to go to and everybody is supposed to flourish in, and now I'm going to a school that I am going to flourish in.
I
That could be said for a lot of things.
I absolutely agree that community colleges, the smaller colleges, are often a much better place to go.
Yeah.
Don't go to the big state schools. Don't go to the 300 person lecture theater to take Calc 1. Go to the small
Right.
colleges. They're going to be
Right.
30, there's going to be 30 folks in the class. You're going to have a much better chance to interact with other folks.
Mhm.
There's I would say many of the college instructors are far better teachers than a research prof will ever be in many cases.
Yeah.
So go get the first 2 years of your degree. If you want to go get a bachelor's degree, go do it at the community college. Transfer to the university if you want to continue afterwards. Because then you'll have gotten all those core courses out of the way in a much better environment, I would argue,
Well,
than a 300
I kinda did it
person
the
lecture
opposite way.
theater. Sorry?
I kinda did it the opposite way. I got all my core classes at the first college run,
Yeah.
and now I'm getting the other I'm getting the concentration ones at,
Yeah.
my college now.
I sort of had a similar ish experience as well, in that my first 2 years were at, a sizable university on the West Coast, on Vancouver Island. And,
Mhm.
I did my first year chemistry, first year physics, first year math in big lecture
Right.
halls. It was a very, you know, typical first year university
Yeah.
experience. Did not like it. Found it
It's
very lonely.
jarring. You get a little bit of a culture shock.
Hmm. After
Yeah.
finishing second year and realizing geology is not for me, I
Oh, yeah.
transferred to what was at the time was a community college back home. It's now gone on to become kind of one of these polytechnic universities.
Hmm.
Um, but at the time, it was still a community college. Far better experience. And I realized that would have been the best place to go from the start. But I think a lot of the
Yeah.
community colleges are dismissed as inferior because they don't have the name cachet that big name universities do. But in terms of the teaching, the quality of education, in many ways, they can be better, especially for the first
Yeah.
2 years. Because smaller
Knowledge is where
classes,
you find it.
exactly. Research profs, I know, don't always make great teachers. Many of them don't want to teach, it's just something they have to do. They'd rather be researching. In the colleges, you've got folks that are there because they want to teach.
That is very true. I will say that, like, for my school specifically, it is an online school, so there is like a lack of classroom socialization, and yeah, there is a lack of like socialization that you wouldn't get at a regular college.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the learning style a little bit better just because that's how my brain works, and I like researching on my own time, and I don't like answering specific questions. I like answering around the question and then ultimately reaching the answer. But I get what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes the asynchronous online courses are the best way to learn, because you don't
Yeah.
have to follow the pace that a in-person class would dictate, especially if it's a really difficult subject that's going to require a lot of
Mhm.
thinking, a lot of studying.
And right, if your like energy levels
Yeah,
fluctuate regularly,
exactly.
like it's a very good solution.
Yeah,
Which my
the
energy levels fluctuate a lot, and
exactly
your focus levels fluctuate. So it's
the
just all the better.
the university environment is not made for folks who have, chronic illness, for
Mhm. Right?
folks who are disabled. That is not
Mhm.
the environment that they're going to succeed in. And
Right.
while, universities claim to have, and, they do have, academic accommodations, many times they are not sufficient, and they're not designed to work for many folks in the way that they're supposed to.
Right, they gave you these guidelines for the accommodations, but if you can't fit in them, then
Then
you
too
don't get
bad.
them. Yeah, and it doesn't work at all.
No. And because grad school, in my case, is so self directed, because I'm not taking classes, it is so hard for them to offer any sort of accommodation to me. Because they can't say, oh, you get 15 extra minutes per hour on an exam. Oh, you get X number of days extra on this assignment. Because my
Right,
work
right.
is very self directed. It's, long periods of time go by without me completing a milestone. What I need is the flexibility to not have to finish in 4 years like I didn't. I'm in year 8 now.
Yeah, you're going at
It's
your own
the
pace.
understanding that I get fatigued looking at the screen. Some days I'm not going to be able to put in a full day.
Yeah,
How do they account for that and those nuances? They don't.
you don't. Yeah, no, I just recently, I just ordered some new glasses because the blue light protection on my glasses is wearing out.
That's so frustrating, and they're so
I
expensive
know.
too.
I actually got these for $3.90, which is mid. Yeah, that's pretty alright. But they were on sale. They were 60% off, and they're Versace.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they would have been 300 if I got them at the glasses store. I got them online, and,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited for them to come in. They look cool.
Yeah, these are a couple years old now. Um the clip-ons are several years old, and I'm lucky that they I was able to get them to fit over the new glasses I got, the most recent pair. they were so expensive. The clip-ons alone were like $300. Wild.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I
But I
think,
bet that would be like very useful in different situations.
yeah.
The clip-ons are the blue light
No, the
thing?
clip-ons are these purple ones. That's what these
Oh.
are. That's why I have the purple glasses. So they're Noir 81 shade or shaded clip-ons. So that's what they are
Oh,
basically.
oh, neat. I've only met I had a coworker back when I lived in Arkansas. He had red glasses that he wore that were prescription.
Hmm.
I don't remember what they were for. They were for like an eye condition.
I know other folks that have had concussions will wear pink lenses because it helps them. But for
Yeah.
me, what helps me the most are these purple clip-ons for looking at screens. And then what I do is, in addition to that, my screen is basically on permanent night shift mode. So people will always,
Mhm.
come up to me in my office. They're like, "Why is your screen so red?" I'm like, "It's because it's on permanent night mode. I can't look at a
No.
blue screen."
Screen's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always
So
have mine.
that's a little tidbit about how I
Yeah.
work. It sometimes is problematic because with the red tinge on my screen, when I'm making figures for my research, I'll make the figure on my screen and it
It'll
looks
be a
good. I'll
completely
send
different
it to my
color, yeah.
supervisor and he's like, "What is that color choice you made?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And then I see it on his screen and I'm like, "Oh, that was because of the fact that I was looking at this through a red tinge screen."
You're living the colorblind life, and I'm here
Yeah.
for it. You gotta experience how how colorblind people feel.
Really, real.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
There's actually, I'm glad they do it now, but when you go to submit papers or manuscripts to a journal, they will actually run it through a series of tests to make sure that it's at least somewhat readable for folks who are colorblind. And I'm glad they're starting to do that on a regular basis now. Because
Oh, that's so neat. That's good.
15, 20 years ago, they would never, ever have cared about that.
Yeah,
I'm glad it's slowly starting to, become a thing now in
it really is, yeah.
academia.
It's a new age.
Hmm.
I do like how my, online school is based because, like, they're primarily an online school, and they have put, like, so much work into accommodating online students. They have 24/7 drop-in tutoring. They have, like, written feedback 24/7. They also have, like, you can email your prof, obviously. I think that should be for any college. But they have so many, like, resources online that are meant to help online students. They even have, like, mental health services and, 24/7, like, financial support, like, financial aid question support. And it's just like, I'm glad that I found this, and it's a nonprofit school too. So I'm very happy I found this school.
Absolutely, even better.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I really like the school. I'm
Mhm.
glad the world's becoming a little bit more accommodating. I swear
Got a long ways to
it's
go, but it's at least moving in
yeah.
the right direction in places to a degree.
It's a bit like living in limbo because we're in this era of change. We're
Yeah.
like in the middle of it, and it can go either way.
Yeah, unfortunately, know that many companies and institutions have started regressing the other way. Many of the accommodations that people made during, the lockdowns and, this
Mm,
new world of online communication, they're now
yeah,
saying, no, we won't do that anymore. But for so
yeah,
many people, those accommodations we made because of lockdowns were so much better for them.
Hmm.
And now it's like, oh, we're not in lockdown anymore, so why should I care about that? Because you should. Because not everybody works the same way that you do.
So being a decent human being. What?
Exactly.
I know the United States got rid of the DEI for government, like on a government level,
I know.
yeah,
And then so
that's
many
wild.
companies just said, well, fuck
Okay,
DEI. It's absolutely
sure,
disgusting.
it really is. Hmm.
That could be a whole podcast topic on its own.
Right. I
Uh,
know we kind of got a little bit off track, but it's
it's all
okay.
good. That's what we're here to do. We're here to talk about your
Yeah,
experience. And your experience
yeah,
is more than just being Ace, more than just being Arrow.
that is true. That is true.
Your lived
I
experience
yeah.
is a combination of experiences that happen to include asexuality and aromanticism, but because of the intersecting identities, that's
Hmm.
important to take into account.
Yeah. I wrote this down for the representation in media is poor. I wrote down like because asexuality has like such a lack of an impact that it's not like it impacts your life in any way. It's just that there's that lack of an impact, and it makes me focus on other things, and it's almost like I'm making it invisible to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to think about like what's making it invisible.
A lot of things.
There's obviously like the people who just don't think it's real, and then there's also like that unconscious feeling that it's a lack of something, so you don't have to act on it. You're not acting on asexuality,
You
so it's
don't
like
prioritize it.
it's yeah, yeah. It's a weird to think about.
No, that's very true. And for me, I don't prioritize looking for a relationship. Doesn't, enter my
Yes,
head most
yeah,
days. So I can totally understand what you're saying. And it's
right,
important to think about that when we're talking about lived experiences because your lived experience encompasses everything about you. And
yeah,
the way that you experience asexuality because of, all the intersecting identities
mhm,
that, make you who you are, that's going to influence your relationship to asexuality, your relationship to aromanticism,
right.
in a very different way than it is for me, and it is for Yasmin Benoit or anybody else that you talk to who happen to might be aspec.
Right, yeah, it is even aromanticism and asexuality, they're fluid, everything's fluid. And I think, like, a little side tangent, something that we're discussing in my communications class is how different cultures, perceive time. For example, like, Western societies think of time as linear, like the past, the present, the future. It's linear. And in a lot of Eastern cultures, it's cyclical. Like we were, so we will always be, and in the future, we will always be what we were. And I think in a very cyclical culture, like even though I grew up in a linear culture, I think cyclical. So I forgot where I was going with that.
No,
I
it's a
don't
very good
remember what I
point.
was talking about before.
It's a very good point. We always think about, at least in North America, time being very linear, and obviously the
Right.
media
Yes.
representations of all of it is time is linear because that's all that we care about in North America. But if you don't
Yeah.
have that, those other aspects of, the lived experience, that's you're going
Right.
to miss
Yes.
out on a lot of important things that could, potentially
Mm-hmm.
influence how you see yourself in those media depictions.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, we all think about like the same thing differently. Like the that old political cartoon that says that's a 6, that's a 9. It's a different experience. It's a
Mhm.
different perception.
Exactly.
It's interesting to think about. It's interesting to think about. Yes.
Absolutely. So now comes the question: what does AroAce Pride mean to you?
Mhm. I think I was really trying to find an answer to this because it's like I've never thought about pride for myself. It's like I think for me it would just be being proud to say my like having well not proud to say it but like having confidence instead. Having confidence in my identity and being confident that I am aromantic and being confident that I am asexual. That's what it means to me, I think.
Absolutely. And that is a wonderful way of saying it because that's what it is. It's being proud, being
Yeah,
accepting of your identity and how
yeah,
how it shapes your life. And being okay with that is more than enough.
right. Just like having it be a part of who you are. Like
Hmm.
I'm aromantic when I go out for a walk. I'm asexual when I plant some vegetables, or I'm aromantic when I make coffee in the morning.
Exactly. It
Just like
doesn't
being able to feel that is what I think about.
exactly. It doesn't have to be you wearing a aromantic flag cape to Pride. It can
Right,
be
yeah.
whatever it you want it to be. And I think the biggest part of it is creating space to have these discussions, creating
Mhm.
space to feel comfortable with who you are. That's
Right,
what Pride is
exactly.
about.
Mhm. I mean, it would be nice to just like I was thinking about, like, just wearing an ace flag around the house.
Do
Yeah,
it.
you can do that.
Do it.
Yeah, you
Go do it.
yeah. I was I need to get a aromantic flag, actually. I only have an asexual flag. I need to get an arrow.
I have the ace flag, the arrow, and the arrow ace flag now.
Ooh, I think I got the Pride Palace has free flags usually every summer.
However, they also charge you like
A
exorbitant
lot of
shipping
shipping,
fees. So
a lot of shipping.
I
But,
have my I have a non-binary flag.
ooh,
Yeah, I have the NB flag, I have the arrow ace, the aromantic, and the asexual flag.
I think I have the old non-binary flag, but I think there's like a new one. Isn't there like there's like an old non-binary and there's a new non-binary.
I
There's like
have the
two different.
one with you know, the purple, the yellow, white, purple, black colors.
Yeah, I have that one as well. But
Yeah,
I remember did they I might be remembering it wrong. It might have been to something else.
I only know
Um,
that one. I don't know if there was a different one. I'm not aware of it. I got the non-binary flag last summer at Pride. I think I was wearing it.
okay.
I think I was wearing it during the trans awareness. I was wearing it during the trans awareness raid train
Okay.
earlier this year. Welcome on in.
Hmm.
Is it
Little Rain Ultra.
Little
Rainer.
Rain Ultra? I could not read that. Thank you. Welcome on in. How are you doing today?
Oh no, little tr-
Little Train Ultra.
train. Trainer Ultra.
Sorry,
Yeah.
my sincerest apologies for not being able to read today.
The T and the I were just way too close. No, wait, no,
Little Train
that's an
Ultra,
L.
yeah.
The L and the T were way too close together.
My apologies.
Little train. Okay.
Thank you. We've just been chatting about what AroAce Pride looks like and chatting about the fact that it doesn't have to be about going to Pride festivals and wearing flag capes.
Yeah.
It can just be being
Peace in yourself.
happy, being proud for who you are. That is
Yeah.
pride. That's all it has to be. Creating
Yeah.
space to find folks who are like you. That is pride.
Hmm.
Not everybody, and pride
Yeah,
exists
wanting to
outside of
change that.
June. It exists
It
365
does.
days a year. It doesn't have to be, and nor should it be confined to the month of June.
No, it should be all of the months.
So, I need a command for this. I was talking about it earlier. These are not sunglasses, but they're actually purple clip-ons. Noir 81 shades. So what happened in 2018 is I suffered a pretty severe concussion and developed screen sensitivity. I had to take a whole year off of school because of it. And still to this day, I experience screen sensitivity. I have to have my screen on permanent night mode. And so the purple clip ons make it easier for me to tolerate looking at the screen. And it's the only
More
thing that
people should
allows
wear
me to
them,
get through the
of course.
day at work.
Mhm.
Without them, I literally can't work. Thank you so much for the 100 bits, Little Train Ultra. That's
Oh,
far too kind. Yeah, unfortunately, I know
oh,
quite a few people that have had, screen related sensitivities because of concussions, unfortunately.
oh
Many,
my
many
goodness.
folks, unfortunately. Many friends I've
Wild.
met over the years have talked about just how problematic concussions can be for looking at the screen. So they look
Yeah,
like
and you can't
sunglasses,
really.
absolutely,
Mhm.
but yeah, you did. You had a very serious one, and you were having a real tough time looking at the screen for sure. Warrior for Life
Oh,
9761, and
damn.
I know a number of friends IRL that have similarly had a really tough time managing school and managing looking at the screen because of concussions.
Mm.
Absolutely Warrior for Life 9761. I can't imagine how tough it has to be on the esports team while dealing with a ongoing, post concussion vision syndrome issue.
Oh, jeez. Oh, little train. Thank you.
Aw. Thank you
I
so
mostly
much.
stream art. My streams are pretty chill. I don't talk a whole lot on my streams. They're mostly just like me yapping and drawing. But thank you.
So I know that you mentioned that
I saw
you
that warrior.
aw,
I saw that warrior. Thank you.
I know you mentioned you haven't, explicitly done any art related to asexuality and aromanticism. But, have
Right.
you ever kind of thought about how any aspect of your lived experiences could influence your art?
Right. I was thinking about it like after you brought it up earlier. I was thinking about it. And I need to do just like more explicit. I want to do more explicit, like asexual, aromantic. But I found that like I was thinking about like how my characters that I make are normally like gender non-conforming, or they don't have romantic relationships, or they don't have sexual relationships. They're all platonic friends. Like I've I'm realizing that now. That like one of my main characters, their name is Ruri, and they're non-binary, and they go by all pronouns, and they are aromantic and AroAce. And yeah, most of my characters are just like AroAce, either aromantic or asexual or both. Yeah, I'm realizing that now. That's so funny. Oh, you need something right? Yeah, it's neat to think about, like how much of myself that I put into my art.
No worries, Warrior for Life 9761. I
Mm.
need to get off of using Streamlabs because A, it's a terrible company, and B, it doesn't allow for captions like OBS, native OBS does. I need to get around
Really?
to fixing that.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't. Hmm. To me, it's obvious. To me, it's obvious that they're airways, but I suppose that's true. Yeah. But you were talking earlier about, like, how it's not obvious for people to be aromantic or asexual, but for me, my characters are obviously aromantic and asexual. That's crazy.
And I absolutely need to get on getting proper captions built into the stream. I have
Yeah.
no
I
excuse
think I
for it.
use
Absolutely no excuse.
I think I just use one of the extensions that are on
Yeah.
Twitch, but, the
So
Ultimate CC, not the one that has, like, a Minecraft character on it.
mm,
I use those ones.
I
And they
want to
work pretty
find
well.
ones that are integrated with Streamlabs so I don't have to export everything to OBS and get everything switched over.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
I
there's
wanna find,
so
like, the on-screen
few
ones, yeah.
options available. It's so
Mhm.
frustrating. Absolutely. I'm sure that definitely helps in my case, but not everybody's going to be familiar with my voice, and nor should they have to be.
Right. Ooh, I read recently, like, on a comment or something, that it takes, like, 40 seconds for a voice to register, like, a voice pattern, like an accent or something to register in your brain, usually. I think for people with auditory, um, that auditory problem. Oh, I forgot that word. But people with, like, auditory problems probably take a little bit longer for that voice to register.
And also, it depends from individual to individual. A mean is just a
Yes,
mean.
yeah.
A mean is an average. It's not
Mhm,
the
mhm, mhm.
variability around that average.
That is true.
You could
Mhm.
have a mean value of 10, but if, one value is 1, another is 2, another's 40, and every other value is, they just happen to average to 10, but you've got a large variability around that 10. Is that 10 really telling you a whole lot? The only time it really
Yeah,
tells you much is if the values all are centered around the 10 and there's not much variability around it. So that's why you need to talk about both the mean and the variability in order to capture the dynamics or the whole picture, so to speak.
Look at you throwing in a statistics lesson.
Got to sneak it in somehow. My whole life these days on the screen is me trying to interpret statistical patterns, so it's going to eventually come
Right.
up in discussion at some point.
Yeah. I did grow up, well, no. I became hard of hearing at 13, but, like, I'm completely deaf in one ear, but my other ear works just fine, so I'm hard of hearing. Um, but before that, I think I still had problems hearing. I don't know.
Hmm. Come to know quite a few people who are, um, late deaf,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I need to make time this month to figure out how to get captions working in Streamlabs. No more excuses. uh,
Yeah, put that on the list.
Absolutely.
I wanna fix my captions, and I also want to fix how chat is read on screen. I wanna
Absolutely.
work on a lot of different
Yeah,
assets, yeah.
I want to invest some time into making the streams more accessible in many ways because they're not right now.
Right. Probably.
So, is there anything else that we missed that you'd like to talk about?
Let's see. I'm reading what I wrote down for the questions. Let me see if I missed anything. Oh, for the book question, it wasn't like in middle school again. I feel like I peaked in middle school from how I'm answering these questions. Um, there was a book that I found in middle school. It's not explicitly like asexual or aromantic, but it's one of the first books that I read that it didn't have any romantic um relationships. It's called Green Angel, and it was just like a character healing after a disaster, and it's a pretty short book, but I really related to it, and it was around the time that I started watching One Piece, so I think I just, like, related to it in a way, and it was like one of those awakening moments as well. I was gonna bring that up, but
Absolutely.
I love that book. It's like one of those, favorites, those comfort books that you find when you're a kid. Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got a few of those.
Yeah, and, we brought it up earlier, but the manipulation that can happen or like, go back a little bit, like the misconception that we just haven't met the right person, the misconception that we're late bloomers. There's a lot of manipulation that can happen with that,
Hmm?
and when somebody sees it as a challenge, and it's very dangerous, and it happens with people of all sexualities, but I feel like it is a little bit more dangerous, like, just a teeny bit. For AroAce people or just aromantic or asexual people because there's like an infantilization that happens with aromantic and asexual people because we're seen as late bloomers. We're seen as like we're not there yet. And so I feel like it's a very dangerous misconception.
It also happens with disabled folks too. They're
Yes.
heavily
Yeah.
infantilized. I know that
Yes.
Sharonda J. Brown talks a lot about the infantilization of disabled folks and the frightening similarities in many ways to the Ace and Arrows experience because of that.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then if
It's
you're
yeah.
Arrow Ace and disabled, Well,
Yeah, double whammy. Oh my god.
yeah. But highly recommend that book because it delves so deep into so many issues around
Right.
how compulsory sexuality is used as a tool of oppression and how frightening it is when you realize how many aspects of our lives it controls.
Yeah, it really does.
It's Sharonda J. Brown using compulsory sexuality.
Yeah, I took a screenshot of all those books, but I think I'll definitely look them up.
Highly, highly, highly recommend it. However, it is not a light read. It's not
Yeah,
something to read on a Friday night just before you go to bed. It is a dedicate time when you are ready to confront some difficult topics kind of read.
I I'm a little. I love books like that though. Those are my favorite. Is it
Absolutely.
ones that challenge your way of
Hmm.
thinking, that makes you think you're wrong. I don't know
Exactly.
why. I don't know why,
I
but I
enjoy
love
them
those kinds
too.
of books.
That's the books that draw me. Absolutely.
Yeah, I really do like challenging my perspective. I'm always challenging myself. Like society challenges us, right? And then I challenge myself, and then I go, I'm gonna read another book to challenge myself, just
Absolutely.
to as a light read. No,
I can't get into fiction books for whatever reason.
same.
It's all always nonfiction for me. It's the only thing I'm drawn to. Find it hard. I mean, I can watch movies, I can watch TV shows, but when it comes to books, I just don't feel the connection most of the
It's
time.
like it's like you're like constantly correcting what's in the fiction. And you're like, that doesn't make sense. That's wrong. Oh my god. That's how I think about like fiction books. It's like when I'm reading something I'm like that wouldn't happen. It's I'm not making the connection that it's fiction. It's not supposed to happen.
Hmm. I have a
It's
very
yeah.
difficult time suspending disbelief, which you are
Yes,
required to
yeah,
do
yeah.
to read fiction. And so I can
Yeah.
do it while watching a TV show, maybe because there's more to
There's like a
immerse
visual and
me
sound
in the
aspect.
experience.
Mhm.
But books, I just most of the time can't get into them.
Right.
So always nonfiction these days for me.
Mhm.
That's why most of the recommendations I have are nonfiction books.
Love to see it.
Been really lovely chatting with you. I can't believe 2 hours has gone by already.
OMG. Yeah, I think we got
6:30.
to everything.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you
we started.
again. Getting kind of hungry at this
Yeah.
point.
Oh, dinner time? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I got some spaghetti calling my name.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. I loved this.
So we're gonna go on a raid here. It'll be ASpec podcast raid with IEYE and Java4Jaq.